Restrict Act establishes a risk-based process tailored to rapidly changing technology and threat environment by directing the Department of Commerce to identify and mitigate foreign threats to information and communications technology products and services. Now, the key word there says foreign threats. Very soon they're going to add an additional word called domestic threats.
Yeah.
Where you're in America, you're creating content on YouTube. According to Restrict Act, we got to shut you down because your content is this. You're doing what you're doing on Instagram or TikTok or Twitter. So, we talked about this with Giuliani to see what his thoughts were because for me, I asked him a question. I said, as much as the RICO Act did good and you were able to catch all the bad guys, that kind of also set the tone for us to come up with the Patriot Act and the next act and the next act, which means more and more and more of Big Brother or somebody, watching over what we're doing. Why should this be something people should be concerned about?
Well, because, look, with the exception, realizing where I came from, but so there is, I think, a need for secrecy on certain things, sources and methods, and there's a reason why there's a need to know to some degree, but there's also a very important reason why you need as much transparency in government as possible, right? And so part of that is how curious are the people that you send to Washington to represent you? Are they asking the right questions? Are they, or is it basically just a self-interested frat party? Or actually, well, that's sexist of me to say that, isn't it?
But they would have Bud Light, though.
They would have Bud Light.
It's going to be all right.
That joke is never going to fail. Never going to get old.
It's always good. So, yeah, I think that there's, half the time. Look, again, I'll speak to what I know, which is the agency. There's a well-worn path between agency headquarters and Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., of briefers going back and forth and talking to the Senate Intel committees and congressional Intel committees and explaining to them what's going on. And then there's this game that gets played in Washington where when something breaks and it looks like, the Intel community was engaged in something that people didn't know about or oversight didn't know about, it's horse shit. Of course they knew about it. Right? But there's a game that gets played where they can go out in front of the cameras and express angst and anger over, I can't believe this is going on. I'm going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to start an investigation. Of course, no investigation ever results in anything in Washington, D.C. But it's an important point, which is you need to have that communication. You need to have your intel community, your law enforcement, particularly on a federal level, talking to your representatives and them asking questions and trying to ensure that there is, to the degree that it's possible, transparency.
Yeah. I want to transition to Pentagon stories. The only reason I'm asking is I thought you would know more about the Restrict Act because this is for a lot of content creators, amongst content creators, a lot of people are talking about this because, when you get to move the goalpost and you can kind of create guidelines to target whoever you want during any season just because something was according to allegedly, and all these guys nowadays that are getting allegedly and their lives are being ruined by allegedly instead of actually being convicted or charged. It's a very weird, fickle time we're living in. So some people are sitting there saying, listen, man, all these new acts you're coming up with, we saw what happened last time you came up with this, and it backfired on a lot of different people. Here's a guy, Giuliani, who his license has been suspended. He doesn't have a way of making money right now as a lawyer. Just because allegedly he was part of something. He hasn't lost it yet. He's not been disbarred, but his license is not there for him to practice. Yeah. It's important to just protect those people who are doing podcasts and shows and they're giving their opinions and they're giving their thoughts versus saying, this is one of the reasons why I love what Rumble is doing. We're not I don't even know if we put our shows on Rumble regularly or not. We're not one that promotes Rumble or any of that. But the reason why I love what Musk did, I love what Spotify did, I love what Rumble did. What Musk did with Twitter scared the crap out of everybody because they were always united together with Jack Dorsey and all of them. The moment they lost Twitter with Musk, they all had to check themselves. Yeah. The moment Musk brought Twitter back on, Facebook and all those guys brought Trump back on, right? So Spotify, the moment Spotify didn't silence Joe Rogan, they realized, oh shit, there's another place they can go take their podcast with.
Right.
So we could take a loss, even though all those guys start saying, I'm going to take my songs off. I'm never going to sell here. Okay, no problem. Yeah. Spotify said, yeah, we don't care. We're going to be fine.
Yeah, Joe Baez. Oh, my God, Joe Baez is leaving Spotify.
That's right. That's right.
What the hell am I going to listen to?
And even Rumble. You know what Rumble is doing right now? Rumble is kind of getting YouTube to realize there's a second option. So if you choose to really constantly do this, the Patriot Act concern becomes if they target the guys that are on those platforms. How can we now control people on Twitter, even though it's owned by Elon Musk? How can we control people on Rumble? This is one of the reasons why some people are concerned about Restrict Act.
Quick point. Don't feel bad because this is very new. I think it came out less than a month ago when the TikTok CEO testified in front of Congress. And essentially the concern with this Restrict Act is that they're using, banning TikTok as a Trojan horse to say, we gotta get this out of here. But then it's going to be a slippery slope to next thing you know, Instagram's banned or YouTube is banned. And it's just more government control. And, our friend Reagan once said the most terrifying words that you ever hear is, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest concern about this. And then I know we're going to switch gears here, but also speaking of government control, the whole central bank digital currencies, the CBDCs things, that's another concern to coincide with this Restrict Act.
Yeah.
Rob, can I read this? Can you zoom in a little bit more to read this? I mean, you're going to have to work with me here because I can't. So as I'm going right, you got to go do that with me. Okay. So this is what restricting the emergence of Security Information and Communications Technology Act or to restrict that. Okay, fine. Let's see what it says. So this is March 7th, a month ago. This bill requires federal actions to identify and mitigate, we just read this, foreign threats to information communication technology, ICT, products and services, penalties for violations under the bill. I wonder what that is. Specifically, the Department of Commerce must identify, deter, disrupt, prevent, prohibit, investigate, and mitigate transactions involving ICT, products and services in which any foreign adversary, such as China, okay, they're starting it off with China, but that'll change in a minute, has any interest in that pose an undue or unacceptable risk to the U.S. national security or safety of U.S. persons. Additionally, Commerce must identify and refer to the President any covered holdings that poses an undue or unacceptable risk to U.S. national security or the security or safety of U.S. Keep going. Persons, if the President determines that the holding possesses such a risk, the President may compel divestment. Okay, so this specifically sounds like it is a TikTok type of a thing they're targeting, right? It doesn't sound like it's a U.S. company they're targeting. But everything starts off like Second Amendment. A lot of guys that are worried about any kind of slight regulation because then they're going to say, oh, now we got this. Oh, now let's get this. Oh, now let's get that. Oh, now let's pass it. Oh, now let's amend this. Oh, now let's amend that. So anyways, it starts like this and it gets a little bit more into your business.
Well, I think look, it's sort of a sidebar to CFIUS and some of the other, regulations that are out there about, what companies can come into the U.S. and purchase. But you're right in the sense that the government does tend to throw a big net out there on any issue, on any concern, right? And then with the assumption that, well, at some point maybe we'll tidy it up and we'll restrict the parameters, we'll get it a little bit more specific. But right now we're going to throw that net out there and see what happens. So I think so you're right to be concerned about the sliding nature of U.S. government actions, and which is again why transparency is probably the best way, because once you get this information out there, once people understand, and nobody, I'm a good case in point. To your point, I don't feel bad not knowing about it if it's a month old. Honestly, if it was a year old, I probably still wouldn't know about it.
Well, I thought as a big TikToker yourself, you would for sure know all this stuff.
I am doing dances
one last
all the
point,
time.
The whole foreign adversaries thing. Mm-hmm. So you brought up Rumble. Well, Rumble, we know, was, I think, formed in Canada.
Yeah.
So that should be a concern, because where do they label foreign adversaries?
They moved their headquarters to Sarasota, though. I think he's in Sarasota now, which is a good
But
movie.
it's a Toronto-based company.
I know it is. It still is. So again,
yeah.
To me, Rumble is necessary for the marketplace. Okay, Spotify is necessary for the marketplace. Okay, Twitter is necessary for the marketplace because it minimizes bullying. You can't bully when there's alternative options. Bud Light doing what they did. There's no other. There's so many different other beer companies that the market's like, yeah, you know what? No problem. Let's find out. Maybe you're right. Mm-hmm. it may be the transgender. If it takes your stock to the next level, sales goes up 60%, we'll sit there and say, salute, good for you. I don't know where you found the market, but congratulations. But if the market drops 30% like it did last week and they're going to Coors, now watch if Coors says, well, we also have to follow our ESG score, and Coors does something stupid like this, and they go grab somebody else, then they're also following the camp. Someone has to come out. Who was the guy that did the commercial? Was it Jeep? There's a commercial like 10 years ago or 5 years ago where the commercial was about, here's why America's great. And it was a voice like that.
Yeah.
The reason why America's great, because we build things. We're builders.
Yeah.
And you're listening to this, you're like, I am a builder. This is what we do. And you're like, damn, I love Jeep.
Yeah.
You know, man, it relates, talks to me. I think it was something commercial that was so.
I just hit a guy, but I keep going.
Yeah, it was a very much of a pro-America.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.